It's a terrible thing, terrible thing.
This is an unspeakable tragedy for our city.
It's a terrible day for Milwaukeeans.
Our hearts go out to the people of Wisconsin.
Tragedy in the Miller Valley.
5 people killed in a mass shooting, and the gunman takes his own life.
We have the latest from Molson Coors.
You're watching the CBS 58 Morning News.
Good morning to you. It is 6 a.m. on Thursday, February 27th. A live look outside at the Molson Coors campus in Milwaukee's Miller Valley. A somber morning after a tragic afternoon yesterday. Thank you for joining us. I'm Mike Kirchhoff.
And I'm Pauline Lee. We'll get to our continuing coverage in just a moment. But first, we have to get you ready with our forecast this morning. Here's meteorologist Justin Thompson-Gee.
Yeah, it's a little bit chillier out there this morning than it has been the past couple of days.
We are continuing our breaking news coverage of the deadly mass shooting at Molson Coors in Milwaukee this morning.
Authorities say they will not name the victims of the workplace shooting just yet, out of respect for their families, but we're told all of them have been notified. We received an update from police and also heard from the CEO of Molson Coors last night. Officials say they found the suspected shooter, a 51-year-old Milwaukee man, dead. Milwaukee Police Chief Alfonso Morales says it appears the man shot himself. 5 other people were also found dead. All of the victims were Molson Coors employees. Chief Morales says more than 1,000 people were working on campus when the shooting happened yesterday afternoon. More than 20 buildings had to be secured, and they had to go through a roll call to identify who was missing. Molson Coors CEO Gavin Hattersley called on the community to step up in the wake of the tragedy.
All across Milwaukee and Wisconsin, there are folk that are associated in some way with our employees at Molson Coors, and I'd ask you to stay close with them, and particularly the families of those who lost their lives today.
Chief Morales says the shooter was an employee at Molson Coors.
In the aftermath of the tragedy, state and local leaders are trying to bring comfort to the community.
CBS 58's Mark Stevens joins us live outside Molson Coors with their reaction. Mark.
Yeah, we're still waiting to learn from many details of what happened last night, but that's the priority for investigators right now. State and local leaders are trying to ease the pain that you can imagine these families, the friends and colleagues of these victims are feeling this morning. Now, Mayor Tom Barrett, State Senator Lena Taylor, the governor, and Lieutenant Governor were all here last night. Now, they know people who live and work in the brewery. They're connected to people who live in the neighborhood around it, and they want people to know that this tragedy impacts so many in profound ways. Governor Tony Evers says for now his job is to provide comfort to those who are hurting.
To bring as many prayers as I can carry in the hearts of the people of Wisconsin to the losses that have occurred.
Now, the governor, the lieutenant governor, and the mayor all denounced this violence. They're urging the country to find a solution to these mass shootings. For now, solutions will have to wait until we learn more about exactly what happened and why here at Molson Coors. Reporting live in Milwaukee, Mark Stevens, CBS 58 News.
Mark, thank you. Those who were killed in the shooting will be remembered tonight by family, friends, and loved ones at a prayer vigil.
CBS 58's Andy Devine also live at Molson Coors this morning with details on that vigil. Andy?
A vigil will be held tonight in Greenfield, a Ridge Community Church, for those 5 victims who were shot and killed here at Molson Coors yesterday afternoon. That'll be again at Ridge Community Church from 7 to 8 o'clock tonight in Greenfield, where loved ones, family, friends will remember those victims. We did speak with some employees here at Molson Coors, and they say that they had active shooter training in the past and were told to stay in place until police came. Employees tell us they weren't allowed to go back and get their jackets or keys as they left. So many had to get picked up by loved ones yesterday afternoon. Employees we spoke with say they couldn't believe what was going on when this shooting was happening.
I heard what I thought was gunshots, and we thought somebody was playing the game by throwing something down the stairs, you know. No, it was a body. Unfortunately, I don't know who it was yet. I'll know tomorrow, probably.
Again, that vigil is in Greenfield tonight from 7 to 8 at Ridge Community Church. For now, reporting live here in Milwaukee, Andy Devine, CBS 58 News.
Andy, thank you. Not long after the shooting, police surrounded a home on the city's north side. They say it's related to the situation at Molson Coors. This was the scene near Cortland and Potomac last night. Police were seen coming in and out of a home there and going up and down the blocks, talking to neighbors. State Representative Lakeisha Myers confirmed on Twitter the investigation taking place there is related to the shooting at Molson Coors. She says there have not been any reports of violence nearby, but authorities are investigating, and crime scene tape was blocking off several blocks in that neighborhood. We reached out to the police to ask why they were there. We'll let you know when we hear back. And we're working to learn if classes will resume today at Story Elementary School in Milwaukee after the active shooter alert forced an evacuation.
One student described the confusion he felt when teachers gave them a code red.
Tell us to wait in the back. I mean, all of us were just kind of in shock because we didn't know what was going on.
Parents rushed to the school to make sure their kids were okay. One father expressed the relief he and other parents felt while knowing that several people were killed just down the street.
The parents that were seeing their kids, they were just happy to make sure they were all right, even though they knew that, what was happening was going on down the street. It's still, to make sure that, when you hear it, like I said before, it's, it's happening, so you just want to make sure they're okay.
Again, we are working to learn if there will be any changes to the school day for students. We'll let you know when we find out. The school also says parents can call them for updates.
Our coverage of the Molson Coors mass shooting continues online. There you'll find press conferences, statements from officials, interviews with employees. That's all on our website, cbs58.com.
A Milwaukee company looking to help remember the victims of the shooting, where these Miller Strong shirts are going.
As the community copes with the tragedy at Molson Coors, a local t-shirt company is already showing its support for those impacted.
CBS 58's Emily Thornton is live at Brew City Brand with how they hope to help. Emily?
Good morning. Here at Brew City Brand, they're already printing Miller Strong t-shirts. I am joined by the VP of Sales, Jason. Jason, first of all, you guys have a connection to Molson Coors. Can you tell me about that relationship Brew City Brand has with the company?
Sure. It actually goes back to the 80s, long before we even printed t-shirts. The Keplers, Mr. Kepler, Rick, had an art studio, and he would do art for Miller. It just developed into a relationship over 30 years. We do work for them in the gift shop. And, we just become like a Milwaukee family. So, printing shirts is just a way for us to show that we're thinking about them, show that we love them, and be that Milwaukee Strong for them, or Miller Strong too.
And can you talk to us about these Miller Strong shirts? It looks like that there's a heart. Of course, they say Miller Strong. Your plan is to print around 500 and to just give them to the company, right?
Yeah, correct. So these are just, they don't even know we're doing these. It's we texted all last night, just members of the company, just want to do something for them, drop them off and literally just give them to them. Whatever they do with them, it's just, again, just so they know that we're thinking about them.
Wonderful. Thanks so much, Jason. Of course, our community is reeling in this tragedy, but companies are already coming together to show their support. We'll have much more coming up from Brew City Brand in just a little bit. Live in Milwaukee, Emily Thornton, CBS 58 News.
Emily, thank you. The shooting also affected a number of homes directly surrounding the Molson Coors campus.
CBS 58's Brendan Cullerton shares how area families were impacted by the deadly rampage.
It started out as absolute chaos for families near Molson Coors as SWAT teams and federal agents descended on their neighborhood. It turned tragic the more information they learned. When the shooting first happened, police quickly established a perimeter to block traffic and anyone else from entering the area because of the active shooter. For some, that meant they couldn't re-enter their own homes. Other neighbors I talked to were finding out from friends or relatives about the shooting and worried for their own safety. Law enforcement was coming in and out of this neighborhood for well over 4 hours, first to contain the situation and then to investigate. It set off a panic before neighbors found out what had happened.
Can't believe that this is happening. You hear about it in other places, but for it to happen here, it's ridiculous. Just want to go home, but it's just crazy, it's crazy.
Once police learned the situation was contained and the suspected gunman had died, they started letting residents re-enter their homes. Reporting in Milwaukee, Brendan Cullerton, CBS 58 News.
Let's recap our breaking news about the workplace shooting at Molson Coors in Milwaukee. Here's a timeline breakdown of what happened. The active shooter call came in just after 2 yesterday afternoon. Then the Molson Coors campus was placed on lockdown.
Nearby Story Elementary School was also placed on lockdown. Police would first confirm multiple deaths at about 4:30. We later learned 6 people, including the 51-year-old shooter, died after turning the gun on himself.
We've had a few too many moments of silence around here recently. And you know, the game of basketball is important. It's a love and passion of mine, obviously. But you know, there's things that happen that put it in perspective, where you are able to take a step back and realize it's just a game.
The tragic mass shooting at Molson Coors did not go unnoticed by Marquette head coach Steve Wojciechowski. The coach made his feelings clear at a press conference. Police say a gunman shot and killed 5 people at the Molson Coors plant in Milwaukee before ending his own life.
Wisconsin Democratic Senator Tammy Baldwin responded to the shooting, referring to the problem of gun violence on Twitter.
She wrote, "Gun violence has taken too many lives in Milwaukee, and the mass shooting today is heartbreaking. I want to thank the first responders who ran into harm's way and saved lives. My office is standing by to help the Milwaukee community in the wake of this tragedy."
And her colleague, Republican Senator Ron Johnson, did not mention guns in addressing the tragedy, writing, "We are heartbroken by the senseless killings in Milwaukee today at Miller Coors. Thanks to the first responders who bravely put themselves in harm's way. Our condolences go out to everyone in the community affected by today's horrific events."
The CBS 58 Morning News continues.
Good morning at 6:29. Today is Thursday, February 27th.
This morning, we have team coverage on the deadly workplace shooting at Molson Coors in Milwaukee.
A gunman shoots and kills 5 people at Milwaukee's Molson Coors before taking his own life.
Remembering the victims of the mass shooting, the vigil planned for tonight.
State and Milwaukee leaders are grieving this morning. I'll have their response to this tragedy.
Chaos for families living near the plant, the information they learned.
Miller Strong will take you to the company that's giving back to Molson Coors.
Just an incredibly tough start to your Thursday this morning. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm Pauline Lee.
And I'm Mike Kirkhoff. Let's get you ready to go out the door this morning. Here's our Ready Weather forecast with meteorologist Justin Thompson-Gee.
Yeah, temperature's a little bit colder than the past couple of days. In fact, some of you as much as about 10 degrees colder than yesterday morning.
We continue our breaking news coverage of the Molson Coors this morning. We just learned that all Milwaukee public schools will be open this morning. 5 people are dead and a gunman took his own life after a workplace shooting in the Miller Valley.
This morning we have team coverage live outside the plant. We want to start though with the details of the shooting. Police say all 5 victims and the shooter were employees at the plant. Officers were called to the scene a little after 2 yesterday afternoon. Authorities say they found the suspect, a 51-year-old Milwaukee man, dead at the scene. Police Chief Alfonso Morales says they are still informing families and will not yet release the names of the victims. And tonight, family, friends, and loved ones will remember those killed in the shooting and cherish those still living with the horrible memory.
CBS 58's Andy Devine is live at the Molson Coors campus with details on a vigil happening tonight. Andy.
A vigil will be held in Greenfield from 7 to 8 o'clock to honor those 5 victims who were shot and killed yesterday afternoon here at Molson Coors. That happened yesterday. That vigil will be from 7 to 8 at Ridge Community Church in Greenfield. We spoke with some of the employees here. They say that they had active shooter training in the past and were told to stay in place until police came. Employees tell us they weren't allowed to go back and get their jackets or keys or anything else like that. So many had to be picked up by their loved ones yesterday. We spoke to a family member of one of the employees who says his wife texted him that there was an active shooter, then didn't hear from her for a while.
You know, when it first happens, you don't know what's going on, and thank God she's okay. Thank God she's okay. It's a tragedy. It's a tragedy.
We're all just happy to be okay. I mean, that's the big thing. We're all safe.
Again, a vigil will be held tonight from 7 to 8 in Greenfield at Ridge Community Church. For now, reporting live here in Milwaukee, Andy Devine, CBS 58 News.
Andy, thank you. Meanwhile, investigators are working to learn about why and how the shooting happened. State and city leaders are trying to offer comfort to the community.
CBS 58's Mark Stevens continues our team coverage live from the Miller Valley. Mark, there are so many people who have connections to this plant.
Yeah, the lieutenant governor said on scene last night that he was dreading to learn the names of those victims because he said he likely will know some of them. And we're getting that sense from all the leaders who were out there last night that there's just so many connections between everybody who lives around this plant, in this neighborhood, and in this city, that so many people are trying to make sense of this shooting. Now, the focus now from elected leaders, from the governor, the lieutenant governor, the mayor, is to try and ease the pain that the families of these victims are experiencing, and indirectly the pain that their colleagues, the neighbors who live around the brewery, are all trying to process just a half a day after the shooting. There are still many questions to be answered, but Mayor Tom Barrett says it comes down to the fact that there are people who are just going about their daily lives who can no longer do that.
We are grieving. The families are grieving. The union brothers and sisters are grieving. Our city is grieving, and our state is grieving. This cowardless act of violence is something that we have to make sure is never repeated in this community.
I'm not happy that we are now on a mass shooting list, right? That's not where we want to be. But it does speak to the need to deal with mental health issues in this community.
Now, all the leaders denounced this type of violence and urged the country to find a way to prevent these mass shootings from occurring. Reporting live in Milwaukee, Mark Stevens, CBS 58 News.
Thank you, Mark. There was a heavy police presence on Milwaukee's north side that authorities say is related to the shooting at Molson Coors. It was around a home on Potomac Avenue. Police were coming in and out of that house, going up and down the block, talking to neighbors. State Representative Lakeisha Myers confirmed through Twitter the investigation was related to the workplace shooting. She says there were no reports of violence nearby, but authorities are investigating. District 7 also confirmed that they were doing an investigation that would take a while. Molson Coors company leaders were actually in Houston for a distributor convention as the shooting was happening.
They immediately canceled all of yesterday's events after they learned of the mass shooting.
It's heartbreaking. It's a reminder that you just really never know.
Molson Coors CEO Gavin Hattersley was among the company officials in Texas. One distributor says Hattersley gave everyone a quick explanation at the convention before leaving to return to Milwaukee.
It was really short and brief. Obviously, he's upset, and he had just learned of the news. It was really an ongoing situation. He's on his way back to Milwaukee, obviously, to get back to the brewery. So it's obviously something that's just heartbreaking.
Hattersley sent an email to employees letting them know the Milwaukee offices will remain closed for the week. The brewery will also remain closed for the time being. On the national level, President Trump and Democratic presidential candidates are also responding to the deadly shooting.
At a press conference focused on the coronavirus, the president started by talking about Molson Coors.
A wicked murderer opened fire at a Molson Coors brewing company plant, taking the lives of 5 people. A number of people were wounded, some badly wounded. Our hearts break for them and their loved ones.
Presidential candidate Mike Bloomberg responded in a town hall saying the president didn't go far enough.
He said our prayers should be with the families, and I'm sympathetic with that. But what he should have said is, and we're going to do something to have background checks to stop guns being sold to people that shouldn't buy them.
Bloomberg argues background checks should apply to those buying guns over the internet and at gun shows. He cited his group Everytown for Gun Safety, which advocates for states to implement background checks and red flag laws.
Democratic presidential candidate Elizabeth Warren addressed the shooting on Twitter, saying, "I'm devastated for the victims, and my heart is with their loved ones and all those affected by this tragedy. We shouldn't have to live with this constant horror and grief. We need to act now to end the gun violence epidemic."
Another candidate, Pete Buttigieg, wrote shortly after the shooting, "While details are still emerging in Milwaukee, this much is clear. We mourn another devastating tragedy. My heart goes out to all those who lost loved ones. May we find the strength and will to act against gun violence and never accept the unacceptable."
The Disaster Distress Hotline is reaching out to people in Milwaukee, saying when things hit close to home, the emotions can surprise you and can be a lot to handle. If you are having trouble processing the mass shooting at Molson Coors, you can reach out to them. The phone number and the text options, they're right there on your screen.
Our coverage of the Molson Coors mass shooting continues online. You'll find all the press conferences, statements from officials, and interviews with employees on CBS58.com.
Still to come, remembering the victims of the mass shooting at the Molson Coors plant. The details behind these Miller Strong shirts being printed off this morning. We'll have a live report. Welcome back. Let's recap our breaking news about the workplace shooting at the Molson Coors in Milwaukee. Here's a timeline breakdown of what happened. The active shooter call came in just after 2 yesterday afternoon, shortly after the Molson Coors campus was placed on lockdown.
Nearby Astoria Elementary School was also placed on lockdown. Police would first confirm multiple deaths at about 4:30. We later learned 6 people, including the 51-year-old shooter, died after police say he turned the gun on himself.
This morning, the community is reacting to the mass shooting at the Molson Coors. The Bucks responded in a tweet saying they are heartbroken by the horrific tragedy that took place in our community at Molson Coors. Our thoughts are with the men and women who lost their lives, as well as their families, friends, and coworkers. We join with the entire Milwaukee area in expressing our sadness during this painful time. Marquette basketball held a moment of silence before their game last night.
Marquette head coach Steve Wojciechowski took time at the top of his postgame press conference to reflect on the tragedy in Milwaukee.
I pray for them, and I pray for their family, and I hopefully Milwaukee can rally around all those affected by it and give them support during this tragedy.
The Molson Coors plant will remain closed through the rest of the week.
And Marquette University also responding to the mass shooting on Twitter, saying it's been a day of tragedy in Milwaukee and our own neighborhood. We have a heavy heart as our prayers go out to our neighbors at Molson Coors. We offer our deepest condolences and support for the community, families, and friends. It's 6:54. Here's a recap of this morning's big story in News on the Go. 5 people are dead and a gunman took his own life after a workplace shooting in Miller Valley. Police say all 5 victims and the shooter were employees at the Molson Coors plant in Milwaukee. Officers were called to the scene a little after 2 yesterday afternoon. Authorities found the suspect, a 51-year-old Milwaukee man, dead at the scene.
Those who were killed in the shooting will be remembered tonight by family, friends, and loved ones at a prayer vigil. CBS 58's Andy Devine is live at Molson Coors this morning with details on the vigil. Andy?
A vigil will be held tonight in Greenfield from 7 to 8 o'clock at Ridge Community Church to honor the 5 victims who were shot and killed yesterday afternoon here at Molson Coors in Milwaukee. We spoke with some of those employees here, and they say that they had active shooter training in the past and were told to stay in place until police came. Employees tell us they weren't allowed to go back and get their jackets or keys as they left, so many had to get picked up by their loved ones. We spoke to family members of one of the employees who says he texted his wife. He got a text from his wife about an active shooter, but didn't hear from her for a while. Now again at Ridge Community Church at 7 to 8 o'clock, there will be that vigil for the 5 victims. For now, reporting live here in Milwaukee, Andy Devine, CBS 58 News.
Local leaders are trying to bring comfort to the community as the pain continues for families and colleagues of the 5 victims are enduring. Mayor Tom Barrett, State Senator Lena Taylor, and Governor and Lieutenant Governor were all at the Molson Coors last night. They say they know people who live and work at the brewery, and they're connected to people who live in that neighborhood around it. They want people to know this tragedy impacts so many in profound ways.
Not long after the shooting, police surrounded a home on the city's north side. They say it was related to the situation at Molson Coors. This was the scene near Cortland and Potomac last night. Police were seen coming in and out of the house and going up and down the block talking to neighbors. We reached out to police to ask why they were there. We will let you know when we hear back.
Our coverage of the Molson Coors mass shooting continues online. There you'll find all of the press conference, statements from officials, and interviews with employees. That's on our website, cbs58.com.